What's up, guys? It's Will back again, and today I'm here with another video about Avengers Infinity War. Of course, considering it's the biggest movie, it's all the talk of the town right now. And today I just want to kind of do a spoiler review, just kind of give you my thoughts about everything that happened and just kind of do a more informal discussion. But considering we're doing that, why not bust out the gauntlet, right? I thought it'd be cool to kind of throw in this video, but in all honesty though, I will put this thing off and to the side, because if I was using it the whole video, I'd probably drive you insane while I was trying to talk. Again. Okay, so that's gonna turn itself off in a second. So if you're not used to me doing spoiler videos, that's because I don't do them very often. I only really do them for like probably the biggest movies that come out. I think I did one for The Last Jedi, which is a while back, and you can see kind of these videos are a little bit more informal. It's just kind of me. It's kind of like an open forum almost, where I just kind of discuss everything about the movie. I got a bunch of notes on my phone, so you'll see me kind of go over that and really just kind of go over everything that I thought was notable or memorable from the film. So as you guys know, if you watch my review, you know I pretty much loved like almost everything about it. Like honestly, I saw it again today, and that's the reason I'm doing the spoiler review, because I felt like, well, you know, I need to see it more than once before I really dig too deep into it and go into spoiler stuff. But just so actually, before we get anything, I'm getting ahead of myself. With these kind of things, I don't have really everything to keep me on track. So I'll probably, you know, divert to different topics over and over, and just, you know, my mind will scatter a bunch of different places. So feel free to comment about that and whatever else down below. But obviously, spoiler warning, you know, I'm expecting or anticipating that you've seen the movie already. And if not, this is not the video for you, because I'm going to go into a lot of different spoilers and just go over a lot of different things and spoil all the spoilery stuff. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, then don't watch this video unless you really just don't care. And in that case, feel free. But otherwise, yeah, I'm going to go into a lot of different spoilers. So I said in my video, I made the declaration. You guys might have felt this was kind of bold. I said that Infinity War is the best comic book movie of all time. And on second watch, I feel the same way. I still feel that way. So I left you in anticipation there a little bit, but I tried to make it a little bit interesting. So, and you guys know, I mean, probably when it comes down to it, before Infinity War came out, I was ready to say The Dark Knight was my favorite movie of all time. I think that was pretty much my go-to for the most part. But it was kind of tough, because The Dark Knight was pretty much my number one, but Avengers 1 was right there with it. Like, it was real close. It was a real tug, like a real close match. You're really splitting hairs with those two films. They're very different, obviously, but in terms of what I like the most, or what I think are the best, those two are really right there neck and neck, and it's real tough. But Infinity War somehow managed to pass both of them. And that was something I didn't expect, because I said in my review that I had you know, super high expectations for this movie. Probably the highest expectations I've ever had for a film, ever. I mean, obviously a lot of people were expecting this film to be amazing, expecting it to be so huge and massive and so large in scale. And it was that. And it somehow managed to juggle a lot of different things at once and still make a cohesive story that was still super exciting, pretty much from start to finish. There's no real slow period in this movie, and that's one of people's criticisms of it, actually. But I don't quite understand that, because, I mean, like I said, every Avengers movie is like that. Every Avengers movie, there's not too much downtime. There's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of characters we already know about. New characters coming into the fold, less so with this one. Except, well, I guess the Black Order and Thanos, which we'll get to. But in terms of the heroes, they're kind of already set in stone. But yeah, honestly, there's a lot going on. But that's what Avengers is. Like I said in my review, Avengers has a lot going on, because there's a lot of characters who've all had their own movies or been in other movies, multiple films or trilogies. And they've all been in their own franchise before. And then when you put them all together, it's hard to sort of, you know, collaborate and get all those characters together in a way that feels cohesive and uniform, right? But yeah, like that's really what Avengers is, right? And if, you know, you should go in to the theater if you know, hopefully you have already, but if you go to see it again, expect that, you know, expect that it's going to be a lot going on. It's a massive film in scale. Look how many of your favorite heroes or favorite villains, like Loki even, are in this movie, right? Because everyone's got to be in it. It's the culmination of, you know, 10 years. So it's like really every single movie, every single conflict has been leading to this conflict, with the stakes being higher than they've ever been. And that's what Avengers is, right? That's just what it is. There's a lot of different characters, a lot going on, a lot of different fights spread out over a ton of different locations. And I see that as kind of like, a lot of people see that as a criticism of the film. I've seen that a lot. Like I said, I don't read reviews until after I post my own. So after I post my own, I go on kind of a review digestion spree. So I try to look over a ton of different things. And like I said, the most common theme that I noticed was people said there was a lot going on. It felt crammed and stuffed. I didn't feel that way. I mean, I do feel it's a lot going on, but I don't feel like it was crammed or stuffed. Because like I said, a lot going on in the sense that there's a lot of characters and a lot of different locations, but to make the story actually work, there has to be. Because, otherwise, if you just didn't have Black Panther in it or didn't have the Guardians in it, people would be like, where are the Guardians? Where's Black Panther, right? You have to have everyone in it because it's an Avengers movie that has, that's leading up to everything and building everything together. So that's what it is. And, I don't understand why that would necessarily be a major criticism. I can see how you might consider it a slight annoyance because not enough time is devoted to each character individually. But that's just, that's the name of the game with Avengers, right? If you want that kind of film, you should want to watch one of the individual ones like Black Panther or watch Guardians or watch Thor, right? If you want to see just Thor and you want to see Thor evolve as a character, then you should watch Thor, right? But Avengers, that's not it. There's definitely evolution and growth that happens for each character. Some a lot more so than others, but Avengers is not really about that. Avengers is, about all those stories intersecting into one and sort of the large scale conflicts that happen when all those characters come together on screen together. That's what Avengers is, right? So that's my piece on that. Like I said, some people will say it's crammed and stuff. I understand it. I understand why you feel that way. I just don't agree because that's what I expected. It's a 2.5 hour movie. There's a lot of characters, like basically everybody in the MCU that we know about, maybe a few exceptions, but that we've seen at least. And you have to introduce Thanos, you have to introduce the Black Order, you have to get over the Infinity Stone stuff, which for newer fans, they might not know about that stuff. So, there's a lot of different locations. Like I said, it's just kind of what it is. So, I love the film. And like I said, this time I loved it just as much, if not more so. And I was able to kind of take in a little bit more and analyze a little bit more and figure out what was going on a little bit more. Just because I kind of knew what was coming, right? With the second and third time you watch, I'm going to go see it again, actually. I'll probably end up seeing it 4 times. Most movies I love, I see 3 to 4 times. I think I saw Force Awakens 4 times. I saw Avengers 1 4 times. Saw Dark Knight 4 times. So I'm going to see this probably 4 times. But Movie Pass, I'm really upset with them. I'll go off on a little tangent. Movie Pass, I'm upset with because they made it so you can only see one movie. You can only see a movie once. So that's how it used to be when I had it before. And then they changed it. Now they changed it back, which they did it right before Avengers, which sucks. But either way, Movie Pass is really a pain right now. So like I mentioned, sorry, I'm going to look at my phone often. You can see my Kylo Ren case. I'm going to look at my phone often because I got a lot of notes here that I want to hit on and make sure I get over everything. So like I said, this is going to be a long discussion. So just a lot of me sort of going over things that I thought were noteworthy. So one note I have here is that all Avengers got their time to shine. Like I said, some more so than others. Not all of them get a ton of screen time. Black Panther doesn't get a lot of screen time in this movie. And I forget who commented that on my review, but I'm pretty sure that Infinity War has filmed and was mostly through pretty heavy parts of production before Black Panther even hit theaters, right? So Marvel knew it was probably going to be received pretty well, but they didn't know it was going to be received this well. And by that point, Infinity War was already pretty heavy, pretty far into production, right? The script had been written, most of it had been filmed before Black Panther had hit theaters, right? So it's hard to kind of 20/20 hindsight and be like, well, Black Panther should have been in it more because his movie was so great. But at that point, Marvel didn't really know how good it was going to be yet. They knew based on their own opinions, but they didn't know how the public would perceive it, right? They probably thought it would be pretty good, it'd be a good Marvel film. But they didn't know it was going to be outstanding the way that we all perceived it. So, yeah, all the Avengers got their time. It was interesting to see kind of how each of them approached the whole Thanos situation. But to me, I think there are a lot of winners in this film. Like I said, I'm not going to be able to get to everything in this video. I'm going to try to get to as much as I can. But I'm not going to be able to get to everything because a lot of times, I think the last Jedi video was 42 minutes. Even then, I still can't get everything. So maybe we'll do a separate video at some point if you guys want that too. But I think the biggest winner here is probably Thor. Because Thor, when I went to the premiere on Thursday night, and I went in my Loki costume, like I said, which was a lot of fun. There were a lot of people who took photos with me, and a lot of people were really nice. That is always fun to go in costume. So if you guys ever have anything like that available to you, or you build a costume or bought a costume, anything like that, go to a premiere in a costume. People love it. Kids love it especially. It's so much fun, and it really lends to the atmosphere, which is a lot of fun. But when I went to the premiere, that kind of environment is really cool to see a film in, to see Avengers, because a lot of people cheer and clap, but not in a way that feels obnoxious. Usually big reveals, like when Cap shows up behind the train, or Thor shows up in Wakanda, which was, dude, the theater went berserk. Like, when Cap showed up, it was pretty crazy. But when Thor showed up in Wakanda with Stormbreaker, dude, it was crazy. It was like the whole theater was like roaring, basically, because he had his old costume on from Avengers 1. Well, he had it in both Thor 1, 2, and 3, I think, too. But he kind of lost it in Thor 3. So, but when he showed up with that kind of OG Thor costume, sorry, my voice gave out there. OG Thor costume, that was just amazing. That was maybe my favorite scene in the movie. That was just really cool. And Rocket and Groot were with him. It was just so cool. It was so cool. But yeah, I think all the Avengers kind of got their time. They each got their time to shine in this film. Spider-Man is definitely a fan favorite. Spider-Man for sure. Some people were upset he didn't get a bigger part, but he had probably as big a part as any of the Avengers had. I mean, he was in the movie quite a bit, and he played a pretty big role. And I think Spidey has just become such a big fan favorite of everyone around the MCU. And it's funny because you guys know I didn't love Homecoming. I think Homecoming is a pretty overrated movie. I was fairly underwhelmed by it. I still enjoyed it. I think it's a solid movie, but I wanted to love it and I didn't. But despite that, Tom Holland is one of my favorite, or Spider-Man is one of my favorite Avengers. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And I thought he was great. I just didn't think the movie that he was in was all that good. But in Avengers, Infinity War, he's awesome. And some people were debating the Iron Spider thing. I'm good with it, and it makes sense for the story. Maybe you could argue that they made a plot device for Iron Spider to happen. Like Spider-Man goes up there, runs out of air, and then he needs Iron Spider. And it was just a way to get him in the Iron Spider suit. But I like it. I like the Iron Spider suit. I think it's cool. I think it's a nice touch. You know, it's not for everybody, but for me, I thought it was cool. And the other Avengers have their moments. I really like the banter between Tony and Doctor Strange. That was pretty cool also. I thought, you get two sarcastic, really strong-willed heroes in one place together, and they sort of butt heads, and that's exactly what happened. And I thought that was pretty cool, too. I thought it was a nice little banter there. And generally, I also saw a criticism that some people said some of the, not only the Avengers, but some of the Guardians and other characters as well acted out of character. I don't feel that way at all. I'm really confused by that one, because the only character who maybe acted slightly out of character was Rocket to me. Because Rocket, originally no, because he goes with Thor because he wants to, maybe get a weapon of his own. And that's kind of, he's normally about himself, and that's kind of what he was doing. But then he just kind of keeps helping Thor for no really understandable reason besides stopping Thanos. But like Rocket's, hard to convince with that kind of stuff. He's always kind of been about himself and about maybe the close ones in his life. He doesn't know Thor, right? So he kind of just keeps helping Thor. And that's the only thing maybe slightly out of character, but it wasn't enough where I was like, this is not Rocket, right? I was like, well, okay, I understand, it's whatever. But that's about it, honestly. The Star-Lord thing where they almost got the gauntlet off Thanos. I mean, Star-Lord's always kind of been, he's never necessarily been a hothead, but you have to understand that kind of situation. To me, the justification works in terms of what the character actually did. Because, honestly, we all would like to say, like, Star-Lord ruined everything and like hurt everybody by just, jumping the gun and losing his cool, right? But you have to remember he's lost. Just like Thor, Star-Lord has lost like pretty much everyone in his life. And Gamora was one of the few things, if not the only thing that he really had going for himself. And then he finds out that she's been killed, right? So he's not in a good place at that point. And he just wants to take out Thanos in any way possible. And he's not thinking rationally, right? He's overwhelmed with grief and, remorse for losing her. So, and that's kind of why he did it, right? That's why he did it. And I understand why he did it. And, it did cost them pretty much everything. And that's just how it goes. Decisions have consequences, and that's just kind of how it works. So they almost got the gauntlet. They didn't. Star-Lord messed up. It's easy to hate on Star-Lord. That's why some people didn't like that, because it felt like Star-Lord was such a cool character and it makes people kind of dislike him. But that's, you got to have conflict. You got to have tension. And that's, just one way of going about doing it. So, but yeah, I thought all the Avengers kind of did their thing, and everyone was really good. Cap was good. They made an emphasis to put the new Avengers in kind of the spotlight a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Avengers 4, because there really is we'll get to that, but there really is a cliffhanger here. And that's just kind of, I knew that was coming, right? We all knew it was coming because there is an Avengers 4. There is an Infinity War Part 2. So we knew that this was not going to be resolved, that it was not going to be a, clear resolution of the conflict in this one film. And we knew a cliffhanger was coming, right? So that's why for me, I wasn't upset by it. I liked it. I thought it was great. I mean, The Force Awakens had a crazy cliffhanger, very similarly to what Infinity War had. And I thought they both worked really well. So generally, yeah, the Avengers were all good in this film. So one thing too, I mentioned the Black Order as well. There are other characters that I want to touch on as well, because the Black Order, I didn't really go into the film expecting too much out of them. I expected to probably like them, but I love them. I thought they were awesome. I thought they were easily, like I said, one of the brightest spots of the movie, hands down, no doubt about it. Because Ebony Maw, his voice was just so sinister and really like dark. And I like that about the film. There's a lot of dark themes present in it. And the Black Order plays a big part in that. And it really helps because Thanos is so powerful and intimidating. But the Black Order is just so dark and ominous. And I love that about this movie. And I love that. And like I said, I'm going to show you guys. I got the, I posted this on Instagram. I got the Proxima Midnight toy at Walmart from Hasbro. It seems only like $18, but dude, it's a pretty nice toy for $18 actually. So I was pretty happy with it. But regardless of that, Proxima Midnight was awesome. I cannot wait. I know, I don't think I've talked to you guys about Hot Toys before. Have you guys seen Hot Toys? Like those action figures that are kind of like high-end price stuff, but they look ridiculously amazing and they're nice collector's pieces. Hopefully they're going to make a Proxima Midnight toy because she was maybe my favorite character in the movie besides Thanos. She was awesome. I loved her so much. Her weapon was awesome, her spear. Dude, the whole Black Order was amazing. She was my favorite. Ebony Maw was probably second. Corvus Glaive was probably third, and then Obsidian was probably fourth. But yeah, I think all four of them were, dude, super dark, super powerful, super intimidating. They all had their own kind of way of fighting, which was kind of cool. And they were all powerful in their own way, and they all had their own little vibe to them. And then they were great villains. They could have been villains on their own. They could have been like individual villains in films along the way that would have been way better than a lot of the villains we've seen thus far. I mean, instead of the Dark Elves with Malekith, we could have had Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight. That would have been awesome, right? But they were so cool. I love the Black Order. Love the Black Order. They were really good. So it really helps because for me, anytime you have these kind of films, in order to achieve like greatness, like The Dark Knight, to me, The Force Awakens, Empire, right? Avengers Infinity War, you have to have a great villain or villains, right? Because otherwise it's really, really, really difficult to reach that level without a villain that's exceptional and next level, at least in my opinion, for my viewing experience. Some people may disagree with that, but for me, that's kind of how I view it. And I feel like you have to have that next level villain. And Thanos is that because Thanos is such a complex and layered villain because his motivations are not just, I want to kill half the universe because I'm crazy, right? That's not it. I mean, he feels like he has to do this. He feels like he needs to balance the universe because it is his obligation, and he feels like he is being gracious and showing mercy to the universe that desperately needs him to do this. He feels like he doesn't want to do this, that he has to do this because he's the only one who realizes what the problem is and how to solve it, right? So I love that because a villain that like the Joker is an exception to the rule. The Joker is just crazy. He's an anarchist and he's awesome for that, right? But Thanos is a more standard villain in that he thinks he's right. He believes he's right. He believes what he's doing is the good thing. He doesn't see himself as the bad guy necessarily. He doesn't see himself as evil. He sees himself as, a person who's doing what needs to be done, right? He sees himself as the hero. And that's what I liked about him. I liked about that it's not so easy. And it's funny because I never agreed with Thanos, but I listened to his reasoning and his logic, and I was like, that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I wouldn't do that. I think it's evil still, but I understand how he's rationalizing in his head. And I was like, that does make sense. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you guys might have felt the same way. If not, let me know. But I was never in agreement with Thanos or agreement with him. But I was like, I get where you're coming from. Like, I understand your logic here. So Thanos was great. And really, I mentioned too the battle scenes. The battle scenes were awesome in this movie. I mean, there were a lot of them, but like I said, maybe that's why people felt the movie was a little crammed and stuff. But that's also Avengers, right? And that's what we're looking for. For me, it's Avengers. I want to see big fights. I want to see battles. I mean, was Lord of the Rings stuffed, right? I mean, there's a lot of battles in Lord of the Rings, right? And Avengers has a lot of battles too, and all of them are awesome, awesome, awesome. The battle in Ireland with Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive, and then when Cap shows up and with Wanda and Vision, that was so good, so good. And the one in New York with Doctor Strange and Ebony Maw and Obsidian Call, I think his name, or Call Obsidian, one of those two. And then also, Wong and Mark Ruffalo, not the Hawk, or Bruce Banner rather. But that fight was awesome, right? The battle on Titan was awesome. These are all like iconic Marvel scenes. And of course, Wakanda. Wakanda was epic. That was like a Lord of the Rings battle with all the Outriders coming in. They look like Venom. Did you guys notice that? They look like Venom. That was pretty cool. And they were super scary, actually. And they were ruthless, too. That was an awesome fight. Huge, large-scale battle that was just exhilarating. One of the best, probably the best battle that Marvel's ever made was the Wakanda battle that just happened. That was probably Marvel's best battle ever. That was so large-scale and so huge and so exciting and so exhilarating, like I mentioned, with so many of cool characters. And Thor shows up with Stormbreaker. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculously good. That whole scene. I was like, I am locked into this. I mean, this is everything I wanted the movie to be. And like I said, I came in with unrealistic expectations. Probably, I expected this movie to be what it ended up being. Right? Maybe the best comic book movie ever. I expected it to be at least the best Marvel movie ever, or one of the best. Right? And we all kind of did. We expect this movie to be so great. Some people thought it was pretty good, or some people thought it was great. For me, this is the best comic book movie of all time. I think it's close with The Dark Knight. It's not like a landslide. Sorry, there was hair there. It's not a landslide like The Dark Knight is a great film too. But Infinity War is just barely, man. Just barely. It's like that. It's an edge. And Avengers 1 is right there. Avengers 1 is right there with them. And it's just, so many characters that I'm so invested in, seeing them all together in these huge, large-scale battles that look amazing. A great, fantastic villain. Black Order is also great. The visuals are insane. This is probably the most beautiful CGI heavy movie that I've ever seen. Not in terms of like cinematography films that are shot, more standard, like without heavy CG and stuff. But in terms of like superhero and comic book movies, this is the best looking comic book movie I've ever seen. The best looking fantasy movie I've ever seen, right? It's just, every shot is just ridiculous. You could tell the budget was incredibly high, and there was basically no budget, probably. The budget was through the roof, and you could tell because everything looked ridiculously good. The battle, so I mentioned the battle in New York was good. So the comedy, how do you guys, let me know in the comments how you feel about the comedy. For me, I liked it. I think it worked. There is a slight tendency to overdo it every so often, not like where I was like really annoyed or anything. There is some where I was like, okay, they probably didn't need a joke there. That beat didn't really make sense with a joke there. Maybe a little bit too much, but not enough where I was like, this is a con, right? So when I do the pros cons list a lot of these times, like how prevalent is it to the point where I consider it like a negative on the film, right? And this, I didn't feel like there were maybe one or two, maybe three times, but not enough where I was like, and not enough where it like impacted my experience where I was like, this is a con, right? I thought the comedy was good. I thought it was clever. I thought it was well written. It felt kind of like well, they didn't have as many jokes as a Guardians film probably, but the humor kind of felt more Guardians than anything, which is a good thing because a lot of people love that humor and I do too. And I like that about it. And I like that more than like the Ragnarok feel. With the Ragnarok feel, like no one takes anything seriously and there's like feels like there's no stakes. Infinity War doesn't feel like that. It balances things really well. And that's something I felt like Thor Ragnarok didn't do as well. Thor Ragnarok is just all jokes all the time, all goofy, except maybe one or two scenes. Avengers Infinity War balances those two really well. There's jokes, but there's also very serious conflict and drama that really go with each other with the dark and the light quite well. So I like that a lot, actually. I thought the comedy was pretty good. So on the next point, I mentioned Spider-Man was a clear fan favorite. I touched on that. The cinematography was also really good. There's a lot of really cool shots in this film. A lot of them are, like I said, admittedly CG or CG heavy, but I thought the cinematography and the visual experience as a whole was just really, really exceptional. Like I said, probably the best movie that I've seen from a CG perspective ever. I don't necessarily know that there'd be a better one. Avengers 1 was pretty good. There's been some others as well, but this one was just ridiculously good. So I mentioned Thor being a clear winner also. Let me guys know what you thought about Thor. I thought Thor really shined in this film, and he once again became one of my favorite characters in the MCU. Because Thor Ragnarok, it wasn't really his fault, but in this movie, Thor kind of stole the show a little bit in terms of, other than Thanos and the villains, but in terms of on the hero side, I think Thor kind of stole the show a little bit. In terms of how powerful he was, in terms of the jokes he made, in terms of the personality he had, he just kind of seemed like the most powerful, the strongest, the most formidable of the foes that faced Thanos. And I thought he was just a really great character. He probably stole the show more than anybody here. So the Wakanda Battle I mentioned, the Wakanda Battle is probably my favorite Marvel scene ever, but this movie has a lot of my favorite Marvel scenes ever, right? The Wakanda is probably the best, I would say, but the train battle was awesome with Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive. I love those two, and that was a really, when Cap comes out behind the train, even though we knew it was going to happen from the trailer, it was awesome. It was awesome. That battle was amazing. That Ireland battle was off the chain. That was kind of an old phrase, but off the chain, it definitely is relevant here and definitely is applicable. The battle in New York, like I mentioned, so many good fight scenes that are really just great. So at the end, when Thanos snaps his fingers, that I was like, I kind of knew it was going to happen. Well, I didn't know for sure, but it was crazy. And I was like, when he snapped his fingers, when he was like, you should have gone for the head, and he snapped his fingers, I was like, I was like, that was it. Like, that was it. That was pretty much it. Well, first off, before we even get there, when Wanda had to kill Vision, I was like, damn, that was a pretty tough moment, right? That was a pretty tough moment. And then Thanos takes the time stone, reverses it, and then rips the stone out of Vision's head. And I was like, dude, this villain is ridiculously good. And that was such a nice touch based on, what we knew about Doctor Strange and the time stone. Thanos was like, nah, son, nah, Vision is not dead. I'm taking the stone. I'm going back in time, or, reversing time a little bit, taking the stone. And then the Stormbreaker is obviously a really strong weapon, considering Thanos had the full Infinity Gauntlet, and Stormbreaker goes all the way through it, basically, or all the way through with the power coming from it, and still hits him in the chest. And Stormbreaker was that strong of a weapon, and Peter Dinklage made a hell of a weapon. So that's something to consider as well. Stormbreaker was awesome, and that scene was awesome. When Thanos snapped his fingers, I was like, yeah. I just didn't know how they all were gonna die. I didn't know they all were gonna turn to dust, but man, I was like, this is where the stakes have gone. And those character deaths were really tough to watch. There were a lot of character deaths in this film that were just, man, real gut punchers. The Loki one in the beginning was real tough, especially for me, because you guys know Loki's my favorite character in the MCU. And that was really tough, but I was kind of prepared for it, even though I was in a Loki costume, which I knew was probably going to be a little bit awkward. But I was prepared for it because I knew that the popular theory on the internet was that Loki was not going to make it, and he was going to die in the beginning of the film when Thanos killed him, right? Because he hadn't showed up in any of the other scenes. He hadn't showed up in any of the other trailers, right? So we kind of knew that Loki was a goner. Whether he comes back or not is debatable. I'm not entirely sure he does. I think he's pretty much done for. But a lot of the character deaths were tough to watch. I mean, Black Panther was tough. But the hardest by far, Groot was tough. He wasn't the hardest, but the hardest was Spider-Man. Because it's funny because the scene back in Homecoming after the boat, right? Where Iron Man, Tony Stark, goes up on the thing in the city there and talks to Peter Parker, right? And he's like, if you had died, I feel like that was on me, right? And Tony, the fact that he goes to Titan, right? The battle on Titan, which was awesome. And Spider-Man dies in his arms. That dude, there were a lot of people crying in my theater. And I went today, like I said, there were a lot of people crying in the theater there at Spider-Man. It was a really tough scene to watch. And it was just a really tough scene to watch, which is crazy because, with a superhero movie, you don't kind of expect these things. But it really was, honestly. And it was just, because it was so sad. He was scared, he's like a 15-year-old kid. And he was scared, and he was like, I don't want to go. He's like, I don't want to go and stuff. I don't feel so good. And he's like, Tony's like, you're all right. Don't worry, you're all right. And then he just dies in his arms. You're like, man, that right there was like really helped elevate the movie to the next level. And I was like, this movie is an all-time great. Like that, even though we know Spider-Man's coming back, I still felt the weight of that death, and I felt the stakes from those deaths. And I love that. And it really did surprise me because honestly, like I said, I kind of expected Thanos to get all the stones, but I wasn't sure. And it still kind of ended up surprising me because I was like, when he killed all those characters, I was like, wow, that was bold. It was bold because even though we know a lot of them are coming back somehow, it was crazy. It was crazy to see all these characters just evaporate into dust. And I would just like fade away. And I was like, wow. I mean, I was blown away by that. I was just could not believe what I was seeing. And the Spider-Man one was particularly tough, but like I said, the Groot one was tough. Having Rocket see Groot die in front of him again, especially as a teenager this time, dude. Or baby Groot, Groot's son, I think James Gunn has said. But still, that was tough for Rocket. And seeing Bucky just fade away in front of Cap's eyes after all the Civil War stuff. I mean, there's so many things that we don't really think about with these films, with Avengers like this. Like how much backstory is there with each of these characters and the characters that watch them die in front of their eyes, right? So, all that considered, I mean, like I said, part of what helps this film be so great is the investment that fans like myself and you guys who have seen every Marvel film have in these characters. So anytime they're put in danger, the stakes are that much higher because we're so invested in almost every single one of them. And that's really the difference. Because if we didn't know jack crap about any of these characters, it'd still be a great film. But I mean, the fact that we know so much about them, we've watched them change, we've watched them grow. It's almost like we've, been a fly on the wall and just watched them become the people or the heroes or villains even that they become. And then watching them go through these stakes and even get killed, like all the stuff that Loki went through. Especially when Loki died, right? He was like, you could see his voice when he was like Odin's son. He said he was the son of Odin, and he was like finally accepted that he was the son of Odin, right? He never felt like he was. And then eventually before he died at Thanos' hand, he was like, I'm, Odin's son. And he was like, he had matured, right? So he's still the trickster, but he's still, that was a sad moment for me because he, that was, and then like he was going to let Thor die and he just couldn't do it, right? He was like, I can't, like Thor's, I can't let Thor die. So they had that connection with each other, that brotherly connection despite, all the troubles they've had along the way. And like I said, all that backstory plays a big role in how we perceive like the catastrophic things that happen with the character deaths. And that was just crazy. I mean, that was just, and the fact that like almost all of them faded away like that was just crazy. So one thing that's interesting though is, and you guys probably noticed this, the ones who are left alive are almost exclusively the new or the old school Avengers, right? There's some in there as well, like Danai Gurira's character. She's in there, and M'Baku lived. Nebula's in there. But there's mostly the OG Avengers, right? And I think there's a reason for that. I don't think that was a chance. I don't think that was an accident or something that just happened randomly. That was a very specific reasoning they did that for. And I think basically probably what's going to happen in Avengers 4, if you don't care about spoilers for that, I don't know anything that you don't know, but this is just my guess. So, whatever you guys think. I think that Ant-Man wasn't in this movie, neither was Hawkeye. They probably had special missions, or Ant-Man is somewhere else. But what they're going to do probably is Ant-Man is going to help them go back in time to defeat Thanos that way, right? The outcome that Doctor Strange saw out of the however many million that he looked through, I think basically what happened was they're going to go back in time and then defeat Thanos through the means of time travel and those kind of things. So help, kind of stopping things before he gets the gauntlet. And that's going to help a lot of the characters who died come back. And that's, a very, very tricky thing to do. Some people won't love that actually, but it's going to happen that way. I'm pretty sure. I'm not, overconfident, but I think what's going to happen is the old Avengers are going to get back together. Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, even War Machine. Those old Avengers maybe are going to sacrifice themselves, all of them or most of them, and they're going to pave the way for the new Avengers, the new era, right? Black Panther, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, the Guardians. We're going to see all of them start to take over and become the new core of the MCU, right? And we might see the end of Cap. We might see the end of Iron Man. All those guys. We might see the end of Thor, right? So I mean, we'll see. And Captain Marvel's coming in the MCU soon, so she'll be a part of it. But she's gonna live. But it's a lot to take in for sure. But I think honestly, what it boils down to is the OG Avengers are going to go back in time with the help of Ant-Man, who's obviously going to survive, and they're going to, try to beat Thanos through time travel. That's kind of the way this thing is going to go, and I'm pretty sure about that. That's why a lot of the original Avengers were left alive, and the new ones all died, because the new ones are going to come back after they reset things and fix everything. So that's what's going to happen. So I think it's going to be sad, actually, to probably see Cap and Tony back together, and I bet you they're gonna die together. Like they're gonna be, you know, the scene when he says, we'll lose, and he's like, we'll do that together too. I bet you Tony and Cap are gonna like go out together and die together. Like, and you know, like pretty much hand in hand basically, and they're gonna die together, and that's gonna be super crazy to watch. That's probably what's gonna happen, honestly, but we'll see. So no Ant-Man, Hawkeye. Hawkeye, it's hard to say. Have you guys probably seen that Ronin theory where Hawkeye becomes Ronin, a Marvel superhero? Not Ronin, the one from Guardians 1, not him. He becomes like a different hero. You guys have to, it's a comic thing. I don't really know too much about Ronin. But that'd be pretty interesting too. So a couple other things I want to hit on before we sign off here. So one thing I didn't mention in the review was the music. The music the second time I noticed a lot more. How epic it was, how grand in scale was, which the whole movie was pretty massive in scale, just like mostly big most of the time, which I loved. And the music helped it feel that way. And the music, like I said, there's a lot of dark and ominous tones in this film and themes. And I think the music really helped those tones exist and flourish. So that was something that I really enjoyed, especially the end. When Thanos was just sitting there watching the sunset, that was crazy to watch, but it really helped, especially the end credits with the music that was real dark and unsettling, and I was like, man, this is these stakes are real, and this is a dark film that just got really serious, and it does not end well, right? It kind of reminded me of Empire, but Empire at least ends with like a little bit of hope. Same with The Last Jedi, right? The Last Jedi ends with a little bit of hope, like there's, you know, they get a little ramped up, and they like, okay, we're gonna fight back. In this one, it's like the Avengers are devastated. Everyone who lost Thanos is devastated, and Thanos won, right? Thanos won this round, and he is totally happy with what happened. So he feels at peace. He feels like he can finally rest now that his obligation and his service has been fulfilled by balancing the universe. And the Avengers just lost. They lost. They got their asses kicked, right? And it's just a really dark ending where like you don't see it very much because the villain won, right? And Empire kind of happens too, but like there is a little bit of hope at the end. There's no hope here. I mean, there's no hope here. There's nothing that was indicated that would say like the Avengers are going to win. But we know they're going to win at some point. All right, so there's a couple more points I want to make here, and one of them is about the Hulk. Because the Hulk really only shows up one time in this film, and that's in the beginning when he gets his ass kicked by Thanos. And he refuses to come out the rest of the movie. And this is not something we've seen before, mostly because the Hulk never loses, and he always is so overpowering that he just, you know, really kicks the crap out of everybody. He doesn't have to worry about it. But Thanos is so strong and so powerful, he makes so quick work of the Hulk that it's basically nothing to him, right? So... and that was kind of a cool touch. For me, I would like to have seen the Hulk maybe come out at the end in Wakanda, you know, when Bruce is in trouble. But I do understand it. And the fact that Bruce Banner is left alive at the end, I think makes sense because I think basically, like I said, the original Avengers are going to go back and have to save the new Avengers, right? And Bruce Banner has to be a part of that, and the Hulk has to be a part of that. So I think that's what's going to happen. There's a reason he didn't. There's going to be a big reveal in the Avengers 4 in part 2 where the Hulk has a big, you know, moment where he kind of comes to terms and, you know, accepts whatever and then sort of, you know, gains his courage back and the Hulk comes out and maybe saves the day or something. There's going to be a big crowd-pleasing moment like that. And the first Avengers, Infinity War, had a lot of crowd-pleasing moments. And I mentioned that in my review. There's a lot of moments when like I said, when I went to the premiere, there was a lot of clapping, a lot of cheering because there were big reveals, big fight scenes. You know, Thor showing up in Wakanda and Cap showing up behind the train and them going to Wakanda in general. Like people cheered for that because they're so invested in these characters. It's a lot of crowd-pleasing moments that really engages everybody, engages the audience. And I like that. I thought that was cool. So let me just check here, final couple points. So I mentioned the ending. The ending was a little bit darker than I expected, but I did expect the movie to be dark. And I liked that it wasn't afraid to go there. It really did balance the light and the dark, like I mentioned, really well. But like I said, I liked how the film wasn't afraid to get a little darker and get a little more serious and get a little more gritty despite the film being pretty fantasy, right? And I did mention that the film is probably the most fantastical, the most fantasy sci-fi out of any Marvel movie because there's aliens coming from space and outriders who look very alien, right? They're in space a lot, that kind of thing. It's very sci-fi and very fantasy, more so than other Marvel films. And the Marvel films before are pretty fantasy too, like Thor Ragnarok gets pretty crazy, right? So I thought this one was especially that way, though, and I loved it for that. But honestly, yeah, I think that's pretty much my whole thoughts on this movie. I loved it overall. I think I'm starting to wonder whether it's my favorite movie ever because Dark Knight was my favorite movie ever, and by process of elimination, since Infinity War is the best comic book movie ever, I'm thinking Infinity War might be my new favorite movie, which is crazy. because I expected it to be great. I expected to love it. I hoped I would, but I did not expect it to be my favorite movie of all time. And I think that's where we're at right now. I can't wait to see it again. I've seen it twice already, and I'm going to be rushing out to see it again sometime this week again. You know, I want to get as many views in it before Solo and Deadpool arrive so I can see them too. So I want to get, you know, so I can focus on them when they come out and just get Infinity War kind of, you know, through. So I'm hoping to see this movie 4 times in total. So I'm gonna see it again this week. Maybe I'll post a live stream, or if you guys want to talk about it, let me know again. But yeah, hopefully this video was cool just to talk about spoilery stuff. Like I said, with these spoiler reviews, I don't do them often, but it's more just kind of me talking, going over some points that I have and that kind of stuff. It's not a very, you know, organized process. You know, I just kind of go through and talk about stuff, and it's a little more open that way, and I kind of like that. But, you know, it's not great for every video, but it's good for these kind of videos. So if you guys have any thoughts about everything I said, feel free to share in the comments. I'll have a discussion with you guys. And, you know, I'll probably post, actually, I think what I'm going to do in the comments is post a list of my all 19 Marvel films. I came up with one, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And post the list in the comments and share it. And you guys feel free to do the same once I post mine. But yeah, we can discuss whatever. I just love to talk about this movie. And once again, I love Proxima Midnight. She was great. She was great. Thanos, I got my Infinity Gauntlet over there. I'm going to be buying a lot of Avengers Infinity War memorabilia and, you know, just little collectible stuff, because anytime I love a movie this much, I just buy a lot of the stuff that I really like. So I only do that for movies I love, like The Force Awakens, Infinity War, those kind of films. I buy that memorabilia and characters that I really love. So hopefully Hot Toys delivers a Proxima Midnight toy. So we'll see. I've messaged them, so hopefully they do. But either way, let me know what you guys think about this video. And of course, everything about Avengers Infinity War. And until then, I'll see you in the next one.